I encountered a charming man at the nightclub, with dark hair, brown eyes, and caramel skin, exuding a manly scent that any dream lover would have. But soon, I realized that such perfect men often conceal dangerous secrets. Chapter 1. A girl's night out. Fiona's POV. The man was desirable, I couldn't deny it. He was hot. His dark hair, brown eyes, and caramel skin, combined with his manly scent, were attributes worthy of a dream. However, I'd learned the hard way to steer clear when such perfection was involved. The stranger appeared out of nowhere, glancing at me and my best friend, Katrina. His velvet voice seemed to stand out in the noisy club, gaining appreciative stares from every woman as far as I could see. They appeared like hungry cats ready to pounce on a mouse in their drunken, carefree state. While Mr. Sexy chatted with Katrina, I did my best to ignore him. This guy was far too attractive, and I promised myself that in the future, I would only settle for attractive with a side of substance. The guy must have a brain to carry an adult conversation and be trustworthy. My track record was rubbish regarding men, and he was the last thing I needed while nursing a broken heart in a nightclub. And nightstands were not my cup of tea. Kat can have him, I thought and giggled. She wouldn't find my reflections amusing, but he was perfect for her. She went through men, hot ones like I did underwear. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I admonished myself for thinking this way. It was true. I often told Kit she acted just like a guy. Eve M should be her motto. I made eye contact and lifted my chin at the barkeep and ordered another shot of tequila. I downed the shot as a shudder racked my body, and wondered why I consumed so foul-tasting and bit into the line. That's when I noticed Mr. Sexy offering something to Katrina. Something I deduced was a tiny pill. I tried to warn her, but the mixture of tequila, lime, and surprise resulted in me yelling a strangled, "Kat, no." But I was too late. "Oh, don't be such a fussball," Kat said, looking at the stranger with a come-hither gleam in her eyes. "Yeah," he said and winked. "You should live a little." He held out his hand, where I saw several tiny pink pills resting in his palm. I couldn't help but notice his golden, smooth forearm. "Focus, Fiona," I told myself. "What is it?" Pushing my long raven-colored hair over my shoulder, I felt the ends tickle my mid-back, right above the V of my little black dress. Licked his perfect lips, and said, "Just a little something to amp up the fun. It's harmless." The arrogant man winked at me. Kat giggled and sided up closer to him. "Come on, Fiona. Do it. You deserve some fun after what? Don't you dare say his name." I shouted and noticed several people looking over to see what was going on. Katrina held up her palms and said, "Okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Fair enough. Katrina, or Kat to most, was my best friend even though we are different, like night and day. But they say opposites attract. Right. We were neighbors for years until a plane crash took her parents' lives when she was 15. My father mostly adopted her afterward, and we were family like sisters, and I couldn't help but worry about her. The stranger smiled my way, lifting his chin. "Come on. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let's party. Just pop this into your mouth. You'll never want to party without one again." I felt a weird sensation in my tummy, like a knot of anxiety. It did wonders for my eyesight. As well, I was no longer peering through rose-colored glasses. I could see him for what he was now, and I didn't trust him. Suddenly, Mr. Sexy wasn't as hot as I once thought. I looked at Kat. She was smiling, but her eyes seemed glazed over. I prayed whatever she took wouldn't hurt or kill her. "No thanks," I ventured, smiling. "Your loss," he told me. "Come on. Hot stuff." He put his hand on the small of Kat's back, urging her toward the dance floor. "Let's leave, Debbie Downer. at the bar and go dance. Rolled my eyes and watched as he led Kat into the throng of people dancing. Somehow, I'd have to keep my eyes on her. "Can I buy you a drink?" I heard from behind. I turned and stared at yet another gorgeous man. Great, they are in droves tonight. I told myself, if I wanted to hook up, there wouldn't be a good-looking guy in sight. There was something different about this guy. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His hair was darker than the drug-pushing idiot who led Kat astray. It was jet black, like mine, and his eyes were clear green, or perhaps grey. It was hard to tell inside the darkened club. I looked away before getting lost in his gaze. I wanted to scream yes, but I remained firm. "That's very kind, but I'm driving," I stated with a smile. Letting people down or hurting their feelings bothered me, and I hated it. "Oh, I see," he said with a coy grin. It was a waste of time to worry over his wounded pride. I could almost smell his confidence. It oozed from his pores. "You know, the designated driver and all that." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Taking in his lean, muscular form, casual yet sophisticated attire, and almost folded, I was a sucker for a straight man with an eye for fashion, but I held my guard. He laughed. His baritone voice caused my flesh to pebble. "Damn this man. Is that why you've been throwing back tequila shots? So you can safely drive your friend home?" He raised his brows and grinned. His gaze landed on my empty shot glass. "But I'd wager you'd still be in a better state to drive than your friend." He jutted his chin out toward the dance floor where Kat followed the stranger. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And damn this man again. I'm so busted. "I'm sorry," I began when he cut me off. "Don't be. I was kidding about the drink spot. You were sensible and did the right thing by not taking what that guy was offering." Losing his smile and his tone now serious. "You saw that?" I asked in bewilderment. What was this guy doing? Was he stalking me? Or perhaps he was just observant? I did. He threw me a winning grin. It wasn't like the guy was being cautious. I'd wager quite a few people saw him offering you and your friend a handful of his happy pills. It's normal nowadays, but that doesn't mean it's safe. Quite the contrary. So he's not a stalker, but something much worse. He's handsome and can carry an intelligent conversation. Attractive with substance is what I wanted in a man. But it was too soon. "Do you know what those pills were?" Holding my breath. "Yeah. A nasty little drug called Sexflex." He managed the word like it was dirty. His lips curled in a snarl. While the name didn't surprise me, I never heard of it before. "Is it dangerous? I mean, will my friend be all right?" I looked over my shoulder to see if I could spot Kat among the throng of drunken dancers. "That depends," he answered with a shrug. "She'll be okay if you get her away from the creep who gave that shit to her and don't let her tick anymore." "Right. Thanks." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm going to find her now and take her home. Thanks for the offer of a drink. Maybe some other time. And I'm Fiona. By the way, I held out my hand. He took my fingers in his large, warm hand and a flush crept over my chest. "Charmed to meet you, Fiona. I'm Rowan and I'll accept the rain check. And I'm holding you to it. Well, thanks for everything." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I betted Ash. "You know, drugged and drunk friend." I smiled and held his gaze a bit too long. "Another time. Perhaps," I said to myself. "No problem. Please be careful." He smiled and left me staring after him. I turned away and made my way toward the dance floor. Searching for Kat, pushing my way through the swarm of sweaty bodies, I searched for a blonde in a short pink dress. before spotting a flicker of hot pink. People shoved, cursed me, and almost knocked me on my ass more than once. I stood on my tiptoes and saw her. I fought the crowd again, keeping my eyes focused on where I last saw Kat. She disappeared down a hallway with the stranger at the back left of the club. I prayed they were heading to the restrooms. Aha, I said aloud to the empty hall when I noticed the bathrooms. The ladies were on the left and the men were on the right. I didn't see her shady companion in the hallway and assumed he was in the men's room. I opened the other door yelling, "Kit Kat, are you in here?" Silence hit me in the heart. I used my palm to slap all 7 stalls open. Nothing. Where was she? I felt dread at this point and rushed from the bathroom, spotting a silver service door. Why would she leave with a stranger at the back door? The door was heavy, so I put some hip into it and a blast of cold winter wind hit me. With the door open, I spotted Kat and the stranger in what appeared an embrace. "Kat, what the hell?" I yelled. The guy turned toward my voice, and I recoiled in shock while the wind whipped through my bare legs. He had Kat pushed up against a brick wall and she appeared unconscious. The stranger grinned at me, a smile that was the epitome of wicked. Blood covered his face and eyes where I saw fangs. I wondered if the freak somehow laced my drink without me knowing. This can't be real. I fought the temptation to flee and charged toward him. "Get away from her. What in the hell are you doing?" He let go of Kat and I watched her crumple to the cold, wet concrete. I shoved him, trying to reach my friend, but he was stronger than me. He grabbed my long tresses with one hand, pulling me to him with his other arm. I pushed on his chest to no avail and saw him eyeing my neck, which I tried covering with my hands. It didn't take long to realize it was only a matter of time before he overpowered me. I tried remembering everything I'd read about vampires and, even though it sounded crazy, there was no other explanation. He was a vampire or something, not human. Up close and personal, I could see his bloody fangs, and I stomped on his foot and tried to knee him in the balls. He was holding me too tight to do any damage, but I continued to fight like a wild cat. I reached up to claw his face without making a purchase. The next thing I knew, the monster hit the ground and warm arms engulfed me from behind. "Are you okay, Fiona?" I turned in relief at the sound of Rowan's voice. My reassurance was brief as I heard a growl from the ground where the creature stood. "Oh shit," I thought with terror. "Go check on your friend. I'll deal with this guy." Without thinking, I rushed to Kat. I was almost afraid to look at her neck. How could this be happening? This was like something out of a horror movie. Blood was streaming from two puncture wounds on the side of her neck and she was groaning. "Kitty Kat," I told her. "I've got you now." I prayed it wasn't a lie. "Help me," she whispered, and I cradled her head in the crook of my arm. I now had a side seat to the gruesome fight between Rowan and the sharp, fanged monster, who landed a punch to Rowan's pretty jaw. I wondered if I should run for help, but I couldn't leave Kat like this. At that moment, the door opened, and I heard music drift from inside the club. It seemed ironic that while everyone was having a grand time inside, we were fighting for our lives. I did a double take of the man who emerged. He was the spitting image of Rowan. I shook my head and peered closer. He had the same black as night hair, the same eyes, and the same build. I would almost swear they were the same person if it weren't for the difference in clothing. It's obvious they were twins or brothers, but at that moment, I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was he was helping Rowan fight off this modern day Dracula. Even with both men fighting, Dracula 2.0 had changed before my eyes. His eyes appeared black, sharp fangs covered his bloody bottom lip, and his hands now sported long, razor-like claws. I couldn't watch it anymore. I held Kat, closed my eyes and took deep breaths, and prayed, "Lord, please don't let us die." Chapter 2 To Tango with a Vampire, Rowan's POV. My brother showed up in the nick of time, allowing me a quick look at Fiona. As she cradled her wounded friend, I marveled at the glossy black hair cascading over her shoulder. Although shocked, I knew who she was the moment I saw her. I could smell her essence across the bar, the heady scent of jasmine. Lilac. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I must affirmed the fact. However, it was odd that she appeared human, a mundane as we called them. Regardless, she was my fated mate and would leave with me tonight after we defeated the vampire. Now that I'd finally found my Luna, I refused to let her die. A blood-curdling scream interrupted my thought, and I turned in time to see the blood sucker had slammed my brother, Rian, to the concrete. I could use a hand, he yelled. I grabbed the beast by the back of his jacket with all my human force, tempering my body's urge to shift into werewolf form. I ran him toward the brick of the building and heard him snarl. He tried to turn, but our momentum was too fast. Fiona screamed from the sickening thud of his face hitting upon impact. I tried my best to ignore her. Once I pulled the vampire off Rian, he ran to the girl so I could focus on the enemy. The bloodthirsty demon slid down the wall face first, falling with a grunt. From experience, I knew he wouldn't stay down for long. Need a hand? Brian asked, jogging toward me. The dark-haired beauty will be fine, but I hope you rescued her friend in time. Hearing my brother call Fiona beauty caused my inner werewolf to growl with frustration. I had to take deep breaths to calm the beast within. The last thing I needed was to shift in front of Fiona in the middle of Dublin. I've got this. Take the girls to the car and I'll meet up with you when I finish him. What? Brian asked, perplexed. Have you gone mad? Why would I take them to our car? Before I could answer, the nocturnal predator was on his feet, charging at us. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Fiona screamed. As alpha of our pack, I narrowed my eyes and said, get the girls out of here now. Ryan understood my look and icy tone. He turned with remarkable speed and kicked the monster in the chest. He's all yours. I stood in the dark, narrow alleyway, facing off against my opponent. He was a vampire, with pale skin and dark, piercing eyes. I was a werewolf in human form. The bloody-faced creature lunged forward, his speed and agility surprising me, but I was quick to react, dodging his attack and launching my own. I swung my fist, connecting with his jaw and sending him stumbling back. He let out a low growl and pounced at me again. This time, I was ready, and I blocked his fist with my arm. We fought back and forth, exchanging blows and dodging each other's attacks. The vampire's strength was formidable, but I was faster and more agile. I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins, and I knew I had to finish this fight fast. The predator swung his arm, but I was too swift for him and I sidestepped, landing a punch to his gut. He doubled over and I delivered a kick to his face. He went down hard, and I saw he was dazed. My thoughts returned to Fiona before booting him once more in the ribs, leaving him howling in pain. We'll meet again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And next time you won't be so lucky. He looked up from his fetal position and whispered, Who are you? I smiled down at him, my green irises turning a bright golden amber. Your worst nightmare. I knew I had to finish it now. I stepped forward and bore a powerful blow to his throat. He let out a gurgling sound and went limp. A sense of satisfaction washed over me as I stood above him. I had won the fight, but I needed to leave before anyone saw me or his friends found us. I made my way out of the alleyway, my heart racing and adrenaline still pumping. The fight had zapped me. Even though I had come out victorious, I headed to the car to rest and heal from my injuries. Enthusiasm, in the silence, I couldn't help but think about the vampire I had just defeated. He was a challenging opponent, but in the end, there would be more battles to come. But for now, I was content to rest and heal. The fight was done, but the war had just begun. You're both safe, Ryan expressed to Fiona as I approached. He was standing by the car, still holding Fiona's friend in his arms. "We won't harm you. Please. Nurse, get in the car. Your friend needs help." Looking upset and confused, Fiona crossed her arms while shaking her head no. "I'll get help. We don't get in cars with strange men." And what was that thing in the alley? How are we still alive? I realized it was time for me to intervene. "Fiona," I said in a placating tone, "I'll explain everything soon. But we must go now before that thing's friends realize he's missing. If that happens, we may not make it out alive. Now please get in. We must get her help." I gestured toward the moaning woman in Rianne's arms. Ryan needed help, so I opened the back door and settled the girl on his lap. Fiona stared at me with something akin to fear in her eyes and held her arms across her body. She looked so small and innocent. I felt guilty to turn her world upside down. As a human, she wouldn't understand. I was preparing myself for the worst. She would detest me before realizing it was fate for us to meet this way, and I'd have to weather her hatred. I'd been searching for my mate for too long to let her slip away. Maybe it would be easier to call them a taxi and never think of her again. She was mundane. A human for God's sake. No as Alpha. I needed my mate. Human or not. It was a cruel twist of fate. Most mere mortals feared our kind or didn't believe form of the supernatural. The ones that did were different. If they believed, they never understood or were driven by fear or greed. Then there were the ones who hunted us down. It was a story as old as time, humans trying to kill the scary monsters roaming the night. But this wasn't a gothic tale from yonder years gone by. This was my life. A life that just got more complicated by a beautiful human named Fiona. "Love, get in the car with Rowan. My brother is harmless." Rianne snickered from the back seat. She glanced in the window and frowned. But he winked. I didn't like how he flirted with Fiona. But I remained calm. I was on a mission and realized I couldn't admit the truth while coaxing her into the car. "She's mine, but I can't mark her yet." After a moment, she narrowed her eyes at me and said, "My father is well known in the community. If anything happens to us, you'll pay the price." The sound of her voice was soft but fierce, awakening a need in me I found hard to ignore. I opened the car door and smiled. "Your chariot, my lady." My attempt at humor didn't work. She rolled her eyes and entered the car. I jogged around to the driver's side before she changed her mind. "What's your friend's name?" Ryan asked as I started the car. "Katrina, but everyone calls her Kat," Fiona said, turning to look at her. "Is she going to be okay?" Ryan turned her head, noticing the blood and wounds on her neck. "Blimey, the bastard bit her. Je mij agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." I exclaimed, hitting the steering wheel with my palm. "How bad?" "Bad enough to transform her." "No, but she's unconscious," Rianne replied. "What in the fuck is going on? What was that thing and what's gonna happen to Kat?" asked Fiona. Alarmed, I saw Fiona shivering and turned up the heat. I forgot humans got cold. As a werewolf, the winter temperatures were a relief to my kind. I asked a question. She ventured, severing my thoughts. I couldn't believe my brother hadn't jumped at the chance to answer. Perhaps he was getting the hints I'd been throwing. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Your drug-pushing buddy was a dangerous supernatural creature, I explained, not wanting to scare her. "A monster?" Fiona asked and shuddered. "Like a vampire," Rianne corrected. I looked at him through the rearview mirror, making my displeasure known. He shrugged and smiled. "She needs to know the truth so she can protect herself from now on," Rianne announced. "Fine," I conceded. "You explain while I drive us home." "Home?" Fiona yelled. "Just where the fuck do you get off?" She was a tiny spitfire, and instead of getting angry, I liked her outspoken attitude. "Listen, Fiona, how would you explain Kat's injuries?" You are both coming to our house. My sister can help care for your friend, and then we will get her home when she's safe. We're offering our help," I exclaimed inside. I prayed she didn't catch the part where I only mentioned getting Katrina home. Fiona was staying with me for life. It had hit me that as a human, I could outlive Fiona for hundreds of years unless I got killed during this dangerous drug war taking place. Ryan reached over the seat and patted Fiona's shoulder to calm her. "I swear we're not serial killers. Ryan had a way with people. He could put everyone at ease while I was the broody one. But Ryan wasn't the alpha with the weight of the pack on his shoulders. And you're not vampires?" she asked without humor. Norian laughed. A touch of nervousness laced the word. He changed the subject and said, "The pill he offered. The one Katrina took. Sexflex." She ventured, and I nodded. "It's not your normal date rape drug," we answered. "If you consume too much of it, you lose control of your mind and senses." I can see that. Looking at Kat, who was moaning. "That's not the danger of the drug. It gets worse." Ryan grimaced and explained. "Too much would transform a human into a dangerous creature like the vampire who bit Katrina." Fiona inhaled a sharp breath and covered her face. She rocked back and forth as a sob reverberated through the vehicle. My instinct screamed to pull over and comfort her or do something. My inner werewolf called for me to take her in my arms, kiss her lips, and mark her as mine. I reached over and stroked her glossy hair. Her tiny hand came up and grabbed mine. I felt my insides ready to burst as I held back a feral howl trying to leave my chest. "Thank you. Thank you both." I felt Ryan's gaze lingering on me and a look passed between us and the rearview mirror that said, "This will not end well for any of us." Chapter 3, Wolfsbane and a Dangerous Revelation. Rowan's POV. We pulled into the circular driveway in front of our grand, expansive house, and I glanced at Fiona to gauge her reaction. To my surprise, I saw none. "Are you sure Kat will be okay? Besides a horrible hangover, she'll be fine. But let's get her inside," we answered from the back seat. "Do you have her, bro?" Holding the car door open. "Just help me get out without banging her head." We maneuvered the groaning young woman from the car and Rhiannon carried her to the door. I unlocked it, standing out of the way, and glanced back at Fiona. She looked uncertain, walking with slow, measured steps, eyeing me with wariness. "Come on in. I promise we don't bite." I grinned. Fiona faltered, and a look of shock widened her eyes. "Oh, you are kidding." "No, I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. That was too soon." "Yes, after what I witnessed tonight with that, whatever it was, vampire," I told her, placing my palm on her back and guiding her inside. Ryan stood in the foyer, still cradling Katrina. "Where should we put her?" "Under the circumstances, we should take her to Mum's room since it's on the ground floor." I looked toward Fiona and asked, "Would you feel more comfortable staying overnight in the same room? You know, so you can watch over her." "I'm not comfortable staying here at all, but since you've given me little choice in the matter." She stood with her arms crossed and lips in a firm, straight line. "If you guys are done, Kat needs to be cleaned up," we answered, giving us a sharp look. "Are you sure your mom won't mind? I mean, as big as this house is, I'm assuming you have guest rooms," Fiona said while she followed us down the long hallway. "Mother is on an extended holiday in London and wouldn't mind if she were here," I assured her. Ryan laid the girl on the bed and I said, "Go grab Kyra. She's about their size or close enough. Tell her to bring something comfortable for them to sleep in. Fiona may need her help with Kat." Ryan left to do his brother's bidding. "I'm going into Mother's bathroom for some supplies to clean and bandage her neck," I told Fiona and smiled. She nodded her head, keeping her eyes on Katrina, who lay motionless on the bed. She had taken a seat on the edge of the mattress and was holding Kat's hand as I stepped back into the room. I stood for a moment, taking in the scene and Fiona's beauty. I studied her profile from the side and grinned at her perfectly small, pert nose. Her hair was a sight to behold as it flowed over her shoulder and waved to her lower back. I wondered if it was natural. I'd never seen hair that black or shiny. It was gorgeous and so was she. I cleared my throat, and she looked at me and smiled before saying, "I'm sorry for being so difficult, distrusting." I ventured with a grin. She stood. "Yes, but it's not wise to leave a club with strangers, so I hope you can understand where I'm coming from." Fiona arched her brows, waiting for a response. "I understand that this isn't an ordinary situation." "Indeed," she agreed. "Now let's check out this wound on her neck, shall we?" "What did you bring?" I moved to the bedside table and placed bandages. A wet cloth. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." And a secret serum from my mother's collection. She's a healer in our pack, and I learned a few tricks from her over the years. I knew this concoction would pull any impurities or poisons from the wound. "What's that?" Fiona asked, pointing to the jar containing the golden flake serum. "It's a natural remedy my mom uses. It will pull out any infection or poison from her wound." "That's great. Just let me unzip her dress so we can have room to clean and bandage it. She will have my head if we mess up this designer dress." I decided not to mention the blood speckles on the mini dress. The top part wasn't taut enough to cover her neck, but it zipped from the bottom all the way up in the front, leaving a round silver circle dangling. I watched as Fiona placed her finger in the loop and dunsed past Katrina's strapless bra. Out of respect, I turned my head and busied myself by handing her the wet cloth, and then I applied alcohol to a sterilized pad. "How bad is this?" Fiona asked. "I'm not gonna accuse you of being a perv for seeing cat's bra." "Please. You seem to know a hell of a lot more about this than me." Before I could oblige, my brother and sister burst through the door, bickering as usual about something. "Quiet, you two," I whispered, piercing them with a look they knew well. "Lay the clothes on the foot of the bed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Fiona, this is my little sister. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Kyra, this is Fiona and her friend, Katrina. She prefers Kat," Fiona said with a smile. "It's nice to meet you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "I'm sorry it's under such bizarre circumstances. And thank you for the clothes. Nice to meet you. I hope Kat is okay." When Rhiannon told me there were actual females here, I was so excited. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. "I'm surrounded by guys and Kyra," I warned and shook my head. I felt guilty because we kept her pretty isolated, but it was for her own good. I would protect her with my life. But at 15, it had to be this way. She was young and too enthusiastic. Times were dangerous for our pack right now. "Are you going to help or tell me what to do?" Fiona asked me. "Yes, sorry. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Handing her the pad saturated with alcohol. "Just clean the blood from her neck and I apply the serum when you're done." Fiona took the pad and, with caution, cleaned the area. "I need another one. The blood is dry." I handed her another pad and when she was done, she got up from the bed. "Okay, use your magical healing stuff. I hope it works." I sat beside Kat with the serum ready. She turned her head, moaning, causing her long golden hair to fall over the wound. As gently as possible, I pushed the hair away from her neck. "Damn it," I yelled, jerking my hand away. "What's wrong?" Fiona asked, confused. I stood up and shook my hand. "Thuck, thuck, thuck." "Oh no," Rhiannon said as he raced to my side. "What is going on?" Fiona screamed, backing away from us. Her necklace, I declared. What about it? It's just a silver necklace my father gave her. Fiona looked at me, like I'd grown 3 heads, and rolled her eyes. Take it off of her or I can't help. I narrowed my gaze at Fiona, and she did my bidding with no further questions. It was silver, all right, but not just any silver. It had to be the purest form of silver to burn my skin. Fiona muttered something under her breath and her hoot the offending chainsy. Just a harmless and pretty necklace. Letting it swing back and forth on her finger. Holy shit, Rianne whispered. Is that Wolf SBAing? Kyra shrieked, running around the bed to get a better look. Kyra, stay back. I roared while keeping my eyes trained on Fiona and wondering who or what were these women. Fiona looked taken aback as I continued to glare at her. Wolfsbane. What is Wolfsbane? This is just a necklace that might know. I shouted as I stepped closer and watched her eyes widen. I didn't care if she was my fated mate or not. It's not just some pretty silver necklace from your father. I grabbed it from her hand, gritting my teeth to keep from crying out in pain. Do you see the pretty purple liquid inside the clear flower? Fiona stood like a statue etched with fear. Damn it. She stepped backward until her legs hit the bed. Why yes, that's Wolfsbane. This isn't just some pretty gift from your father. It's a weapon our enemies use against us. I bellowed as the pure silver continued to scorch me. Who is your father? I dropped the poisonous necklace and stalked toward her. Fiona looked at me with tears and terror in her eyes. I grabbed her upper arms and shook her for good measure. Who is he? Let her go. Kyra screamed, pounding me in the back with her small fists. Who is he? I snarled, my nose touching hers. My insides were churning with wanting and fear. Her smell tantalized my wolf senses while my logic screamed at the danger she presented. You enchant her. Rowan. It's obvious she doesn't have a clue what's going on and you're scaring her. My brother grabbed my arm, but I shrugged him off. Not until she answers me. You will answer me or I'll let your friend die. I told her in a menacing whisper. The odds of Katrina dying were slim to none, but Fiona didn't know that I'd use whatever means necessary to get answers. Without warning, Fiona kicked my shin and pushed me. Let me go. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You're hurting me. She stood panting and rubbing her upper arms. I'm leaving and taking Kat to the hospital. You are fucking crazy. She screamed. You're going nowhere. Nurse. Answer my question. My inner wolf was close to exploding, and I could feel the hair sprouting along my spine. His name is Cormac Quinn. You prick. Ireland's renowned scientist. Now get out of my way. I'm calling for a ride. You can't keep us here. I shoved her onto the bed. Rianne, lock that door. Kyra, apply Mom's serum to her friend's neck. I ordered while keeping my steel gaze on Fiona, who glared daggers back at me. She was feisty. I'd give her that. Ryan started toward the door and said, I don't think this is wise. Bro, just do it now. Both of you know why. So, the famous Cormac Quinn. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And smiled down at Fiona without mirth. Yes, and I'm Fiona Quinn. When my father and the Garda find out that you've kidnapped me and Kat, there'll be hell to pay for you. She spat, glaring at me with evil intent in her orbs. Blimey, this is terrible. Shit, 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 Rian said as he stood guarding the bedroom door. My stomach churned at the thought of being paired with the daughter of Cormac Quinn, while most knew him as a brilliant scientist. The supernatural world knew him as one of Ireland's renowned hunters. He was a fearless killer known to the creatures of every race. He was a bloody monster. And his daughter, my fated mate. How's that for irony? As much as it would have hurt. I should have let Fiona and her foolish friend die at the hands of that vampire tonight. Chapter 4. Captive Second Draft. Fiona's POV, with his murderous gaze fixed on me. I pushed myself off my elbows. It surprised me when Rowan shoved me on the bed. But never again. I'll be ready in the future, while worried about her health. I cursed Kat under my breath for getting us into this mess. A thousand thoughts clouded my mind, making it hard to concentrate. I only knew that we needed to get out of there fast. I didn't choose to leave with Rowan. He forced my hand, but I had found him appealing. Now he stood staring at me like I was pond scum. And I still found him attractive. What is wrong with me? I need to stay away from men I find handsome and alluring. It always leads to trouble. Listen, I said with a calmness I damn sure didn't feel. I don't know where you heard such horrible lies about my father, but they are untrue. He is a pillar of society. I raised my palms in a placating gesture and scooted to the edge of the bed. I felt vulnerable with him towering over me. He was a raging lunatic, and I hoped his brother and sister were sane. They seemed more amenable. At least, I appreciate everything you've done for us tonight. You saved our lives. Looking up, I had hoped to see his face soften a bit. But so much for hope. He looked at me with contempt and stone. Cold eyes. But I continued. And I am thankful for. I glanced over at Kat as Kyra was taping a bandage over the wound on her neck. For the special care of Kat. Can we forget all this nasty business? I'll call for a ride and never speak of this again. With a smirk, he placed his large hands on his hips. I just need my purse. I stood, but Rowan didn't budge. My first instinct was to sit back down, but I held firm. I'm sorry I threatened you. All right, I won't speak of this to anyone, not the garter or my father. You can listen as I make that call for a ride. He pushed me back onto the bed as I stepped around him. I was tired of him shoving me around. What is wrong with you? Is saying sorry not enough? What would you like me to do? He laughed. My anger, which was brimming below the surface, erupted. I sat back up, gritted my teeth, and took a long breath to calm my nerves. My temper would only enrage Rowan more. He laughed again. You are so funny. You know. Fucking hilarious. The mock humor disappeared as the words left my lips, replaced by his notorious scowl. I felt a spark between us at the club, but something had changed. It was hard to describe, yet it was almost magical the way his bright green eyes seemed to search my soul. I felt drawn to him in an unfamiliar but thrilling way. For a moment, I'd let myself daydream of a relationship with him after he saved my life. Stupid female shit. I admonished myself in silence. I was foolish and ashamed, but I'd practically named our children. Irie lad with chestnut brown hair and dark emerald eyes matching his dad's. Irie last with Cole, black curls framing a heart-shaped face with large blue eyes like mine. And even with everything that had transpired, I still felt something for him. Something besides the fear and hatred, something for an I couldn't name. My brain was battling to take control of my ridiculous emotions. There should be nothing to battle, and I shouldn't harbor any fondness for this horrible man holding me captive. I despise him. I told myself to gain back my wits and control. Why does he have to be so bloody gorgeous? He was the epitome of tall, dark, and handsome, and I wanted to run my fingers through his thick dark hair and get lost in his eyes, the colour of a lush summer field. His body was lean but muscular, just the way I like. I wasn't fond of stocky, brawny men, but Rowan appeared like robust perfection. Damn him. Listen to me. Please. You're wrong about my father. He's a scientist who does only good. His research has saved lives all over the world. So, you see why calling him a killer is ridiculous, don't you? Rowan lifted his lip in a sinister smirk. There is nothing good about Hunter Quincy. I ventured and sighed in relief. I knew you were confused. My father is Corny Quinn, not Hunter Quinn. My, Rowan said with exasperation. Do you think me stupid? Laughed. Because I can't see Killer Cormac's daughter being this dumb. Enough, Rowan. Ryan shouted and walked to the foot of the bed. I'm sorry, Fiona, but it's all true. My brother doesn't have to be such an arse about it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He shouldn't persecute you over the sins of your father. Ryan gave Rowan a recrocular look before continuing. Your father is a known hunter who kills the things that go bump in the night. You know, like the vampire we encountered earlier. He hunts and kills supernatural creatures. And that fucking necklace your friend was wearing proves we are telling you the truth. Rowan placed his hands on his hips and sighed before moving away from the bed, looking defeated. I used that moment to stand and grabbed the city chain from the floor. I held the offending object out toward Rowan. How does this necklace prove anything? Maybe you're just allergic to silver. Oh, I'm allergic to it. All right. Take that damn thing and flush it down the toilet. He pointed toward the bathroom with a thunderous look on his face. I will not. It's Katrina's and was a gift from my dad, who doesn't give out many heartfelt gifts. He's not a very affectionate man, but killers never are. Rowan pointed toward the bathroom. Flush it now, no. I shoved a silver chain in my bra, smirking at him, and hoped he wouldn't be audacious enough to retrieve it. Rowan, don't. Kyra and Rhiannon both yelled. She doesn't have a clue about any of this. Kyra approached her brother. And you're not making this any easier by bullying her. Kyra was right. Something strange and ugly was happening around me, leaving me confused and in the dark. However, Rowan didn't look convinced of my innocence. Kyra, you have a pure heart, and I love how you always see the good in people. He placed his hands on her shoulders and smiled before his face turned serious, almost angry. But it's dangerous and will get you hurt or killed one day. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That's why I'm so protective of you. Miss Fiona acts all innocent and clueless, and you buy into it without blinking an eye. I rolled my eyes and slapped my forehead. My father gifted us both one of these when we started university. It's a flower. I can't remember the name. He said it was called the Queen of Poisons and would ward off evil spirits. Rowan was narrowing his eyes at me, and I felt like crying. This had been the night from hell, and I was suffering the effects. So I allowed the tears to slip from my eyes. I don't remember my mother because she died giving birth to me. Listen, my father told me she was very superstitious, and that's why he gave us the necklaces. As my tears turned to sobs, I sat back on the bed with heavy limbs and an aching back. I was sick of all this. See, I was right not to trust her. She knows what the necklace stands for. Queen of Poisons, she called it. And you both had her admit that. Rowan glanced between his brother and sister. She doesn't know. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Wyatt sat beside me and patted my back. I'm sorry about him, but he's right about your father. Bro, don't be an EJIT. She's doing a great job of fooling you too. Be careful, or you might end up covered in her wolfsbane or worse. You better watch yourself. I'm not trying to fool anyone. I was beyond drained and losing my will to fight. Right now, I'm confused, angry. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And terrified. I've never seen a bloody freaking vampire before. And before night, I didn't know they were real. And I have never heard of wolfsbane either. I crossed my arms and prayed that Rowan would leave the room so I could rest and think. I believe you. Rhiannon affirmed. It was a minor victory, but I felt pleased anyway. I do too. And you're a big fat jerk. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I think you should leave so Fiona can rest. And once her friend recovers, let them go home. Kyra glared at Rowan and huffed while placing her hands on her hips. Great. 3 against 1. Well, that's fine. But remember, I'm not just your brother. I'm also your alpha, and we all know you're our alpha, bro. And we know you're right about her father. Rhiannon interrupted, and I observed a peculiar look pass between the brothers. But she knows nothing about supernatural creatures, other worlds, or how her father fits in all this. Ryan shrugged. Whatever. Rhiannon, She's still his daughter, and I'm keeping her here. I'll contact the bastard tomorrow and tell him where his precious Fiona is." He threw his head back and laughed, causing a chill to shoot up my spine. Wyant stood and grabbed my hands, giving me a sympathetic smile. "I'm sorry, love, and I believe you, but Rowan is right. You need to stay here tonight. We will contact your father in the morning and plan to get you and Kat home. You're safe here. Isn't she, Rowan?" Rowan blew out a frustrated sigh. "Yes, they are safe as long as neither tries to harm us." It was my turn to laugh, and I did so until I was weeping again. "Harm you? How on earth could we harm you?" He ignored me, and I shook my head. "Your father has some important things I want back, and I bet he'll be happy to oblige now that I have you." The cocky bastard winked at me, with my heart lodged in my throat and mascara stinging my eyes from crying. "To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So you are holding me for ransom. My father will pay you whatever he owes, but I can't imagine him owing you money. We don't want or need his money. The things he has are priceless and belong to us." The venom in his voice shocked me. "But my father is not a monster. You're the monster. Get out." I screamed and jumped off the bed, pointing to the door. "Lock us in if you must, but get the hell out. I'm exhausted and can't take any more tonight. Come on," Rowan called to his siblings. As I watched them leave, Kyra turned and waved with a sad-looking smile. "Hey, don't do anything stupid. I'll be outside this door and have guards surrounding my house." Rowan scowled at me before slamming the door so hard I flinched. Despite my dirty, torn little black dress, I crawled up beside Kat and cried myself to sleep. Chapter 5, The Twilight Zone, Fiona's POV. Although I still felt exhausted, I woke up several times before sunrise. It felt like I was living in an episode of The Twilight Zone. Every time I roused, I reached over to make sure Kat was breathing, relieved she was alive. But I wondered when she would wake up. I was alone and scared and needed her. Damn it. Kat could help me talk this through. We could figure it all out together like we always did. As I lay in the dark, I kept going over everything that had transpired and I had questions. Things were going to change when I saw Owen again. He demanded explanations from me, but now it was my turn. Why did his skin burn from the silver? And why was he so worried about wolfsbane? He insisted my father hunted and killed creatures of the night. To why would he care? I sat up in bed and whispered, "Oh shit." A snippet of conversation stood out in my mind. I had asked if they were vampires and denied it. It made sense. Would they have still fought the guy at the club if they were vampires? Did all vampires get along? I didn't have the answers, but crazy as it sounded, I feared Rowan and his family were not human. The very idea was laughable, and never in a million years would I believe something so absurd until now. After last night, I saw with my own eyes that other creatures besides humans exist. I saw an actual vampire. I thought and swallowed hard. My mouth was dry, and I was desperate for a drink. I didn't want to drink bathroom water, nor did I relish the idea of waking anyone yet. I wasn't sure how to face these people or things, whatever they were. They could be dangerous and I was terrified. I scrambled off the bed and padded to the bathroom to relieve myself. Standing in the darkened room, I closed my eyes and counted to 10. When I opened them, I could make out the room better. After using the toilet, I washed my hands and splashed cool water on my face, and that's when I remembered my purse. Where was my purse? I raced from the room, my gaze landing on the clothes Kyra had brought. I thought my purse was on the bed. "Where's the damn light switch?" "Aha," I whispered and crept to the door in case Rowan was on the other side. My finger flipped the switch to the left of the door and I stood unmoving for a moment and listened for any sounds. Hearing nothing, I wandered around the large room looking for my purse. To no avail. I even checked under the bed. The bastard had my purse with my cell phone. I was furious. Furious and parched. Anger always gave me my courage, and I grabbed the clothes, kicking out a pair of joggers and a Janis Joplin t-shirt. At least the kid has good taste in music, I thought with a smile. Janis Joplin was one of my all-time favorite female singers, and I felt this was a good sign. Call me silly, but I believed in things like fate and signs. However, I needed to wipe the grin off my face. Stop singing, Bobby McGee, in my head and return to being bloody pissed off. If not, I'd lose my courage. Once dressed and concentrating on being held captive by a stranger, who may or may not be a vampire or warlock, I rapped my knuckles on the door. I stood with my hand on my hip and waited. Nothing. This time I pounded on the wood using my fist. Dingo. I pressed my ear to the door and listened as the footsteps sounded closer and closer on the tile and leapt back just in time. The sound of the doorknob turning had my heart racing, and I was prepared to fight for some answers. Good morning, sunshine. Rowan said straight, faced the clenched teeth and followed up with a sarcastic-looking grin. He reminded me of the big bad wolf from Little Red Riding Hood. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My father is not a murderer. I yelled and cursed myself. Damn it. Fiona. That was not what I planned on saying. Rowan stood with his hands on his hips and a bored look on his face. So you've told me several times now. He looked over at the bed and back at me. How's your friend? When will she wake up? It's still early. She's sleeping it off. Now we have some business to take care of. Lass, come with me, he ordered and stormed off, leading me with my mouth open. The bloody cheek of this man, I said loud enough for him to hear. I didn't get a response, which made my blood boil. Are you taking the piss? I ran to catch up with him. He had to be joking. I was famished and beyond thirsty. He turned, and we collided. You'd have thought I had burned him by the way he flinched away from me. No, I'm not taking the piss. You want to go home? Right. Yes, but where are your manners? I stood with my hands on my hips and narrowed my eyes at him. Not only am I starving, but I have had nothing to drink since the tequila last night, I said with my voice raised. This isn't a bed and breakfast, princess, he said in a whisper. Why are you whispering? Afraid you'll wake up one of your siblings and they find you denying me basic human needs. My brows rose to my hairline as I waited for his response. I could not care less what my siblings think. The boss here is me. The quicker you realize I am the one in charge, the better we will get on. Follow me to the kitchen. He strode off in a huff and I followed. A minor victory, but I took it. The war with Rowan was far from over, but I needed sustenance and caffeine to spar with him. Rowan led me to a grand kitchen that smelled of roasted coffee. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, and sausage. My mouth watered as I took in my surroundings. The room was large but felt homey to me. Light filled the room as the sun shone in through the floor, 2 ceiling windows, taking up an entire wall. It was a lovely kitchen. I had a thing for a nice kitchen. Make yourself at home, Rowan said, holding out a hand to show a spread of food covered with silver lids on a long counter. Coffee or tea is over there. He pointed to a Keurig tea kettle beside the range. There's cream, sugar, and anything else you could want for your beverage and bottled waters in the fridge. Take care of your basic human needs and I'll be back soon. He glared at me and left. Thank you, I said with a sneer and rolled my eyes at his retreating form. Take care of your basic human needs. I mocked him with disgust before I did just that. I shoved the last of the eggs into my mouth, then drank deeply from the coffee I'd loaded with sweetener and cream. I let out an audible groan and stretch, rolling my neck from side to side. I closed my eyes and did my shoulders too. It felt wonderful to stretch out the kinks, and a full belly helped. As well, I opened my eyes and screamed, Blimey, you scared me. Rowan was leaning against the counter, staring at me. He licked his lips and for a moment, I forget to hate him. My mind took me to a place I had no business going. I'm just waiting for Rian so we can conclude our business. Breaking my unwanted reverie, It was like having a bucket of ice poured over your head. I came crashing back to reality. While we wait, I have a few questions for you. I stood and walked to the other end of the counter and leaned against it for support. What are you? Narrowing my eyes. I was nervous but very curious to hear his answer and waited with bated breath. What I am is of no consequence. You've been living a lie your whole life with a father you don't know. And all you want to know is if I'm human or not. That's rather sad. Fiona, and I almost feel pity for you. The nerve of this bastard. Don't deflect. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Logan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I know my father. You don't. Let's see. Stroking his chin like he was pondering something of importance. Mid to late 50s. Light reddish hair, receding hairline, red and grey beard, green eyes, rather short, and a septagram known as a fairy star tattoo on his forearm. My mouth dropped open as I listened to his perfect description. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Logan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So what? Anyone could Google him and know all that. I crossed my arms and cursed while my heart beat in my ears. Could it all be true? No way. But how does he know about the star tattoo? We didn't have to Google him, Petrian said, stepping into the kitchen. I'm so sorry. I am, but we know because he's tried to kill us a few times. Rowan added, glaring at me. But it can't be true. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Logan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gripping the edge of the counter. Wait. If he tried to kill you. He did try. Rowan growled. Enough. Rowan. Rhiannon whispered with harshness. Give the last some time to work it out. The brothers standing side by side were blurry and distorted as tears clouded my eyes. If he tried to kill you. I choked out again. That means you're werewolves, Rhiannon answered. Werewolves, I whispered, swallowing hard, and wrapped my arms around my body. I am in the twilight zone, I thought as I stumbled toward the closest chair. Chapter 6, A Cruel Reality Rowan's POV. I hadn't wanted Fiona to find out we were a family of werewolves this way. However, the words were out there now, but there would be hell to pay for Rhiannon at a later date. Right now, I needed to figure out how to deal with her, so I could make that phone call to her father. I was itching to tell him I held all the cards and that if he wanted Fiona back, he would meet my demands. She sat looking at us, her face drained of color and her mouth was slack. I worried she might faint. Nice. Rhiannon, I told my brother, throwing him a menacing glare. What were you thinking? Look at her. She's in shock or something. Sometimes it's best to just strip the band-aid off. Besides, you've had ample time to tell her. You know. You put it off and she must have been wondering. He shrugged his shoulders. Fiona, pet, are you all right? I promise you are not in any danger from us. When she sat in silence staring at nothing I could pinpoint, I knew I had to do something. I approached her with slow steps, so as not to frighten her. Rhiannon is right. We will not hurt you, and you have my word on that. She raised her dark blue eyes and met mine. I don't believe it. I don't believe any of this. This is all too much for me to take in. You expect me to believe that you are a freaking werewolf. She started laughing and didn't stop. She laughed louder, throwing her head back until it sounded like a crazed cackle. Great. Now she's hysterical. Gonzanziazo, glancing over my shoulder and cutting my eyes at my big-mouthed brother. See what you've caused. She's having a hysteria breakdown or something. I'm not hysterical, she piped up, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. It's just hard to believe. First a vampire, now werewolves. What's next? Witches and warlocks. She winked at me, the sarcastic wench. I hope not, I answered. We try hard not to mix with the other races. We don't all get along very well. Yeah, I noticed, she said in a dry manner. Did you kill that vampire? No, just maimed him pretty well. Since the tools to kill him were not with me, I scoured the bars, clubs, and pubs trying to gather information about Sexflex to find out who created and is distributing it. That bloodsucker might have been a human before. I told her. What do you mean? Confusion marring her forehead. Someone could have given him Sexflex. And it's very addictive. We've explained it. Fiona, after taking several doses, it turns humans into certain creatures. I'm not sure how it works yet. I don't know why it turns some into vampires and others into goblins. Hell, for all I know, it may turn people into werewolves. And witches. I don't know enough yet, but I intend to find out. Fiona ventured. Well, I wish you luck, but I want to take Kat home. Right. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gritting my teeth. Although I planned on sending her home as soon as I got what I wanted from her father, my inner werewolf was protesting. I knew I had to let her go. Mate or not. Still, the thought of releasing Fiona after finally finding my Lunastan, it hurt. Honestly, my heart ached, and I yearned for her. I stood and removed her cell phone from my back pocket. I'm going to call your father now. He's holding some of my pack prisoners and I intend to get them back by exchanging you. She hopped from the chair and it toppled to the floor. That can't be, and I don't believe it. Fiona cried out. I watched her clear blue eyes cloud over as tears dripped onto her t-shirt. Sorry, Fiona, I whispered, giving her a sad smile. I was too tired to be angry with her anymore. Yes, several adults and a few children as young as 4. Their parents are going out of their minds and, as Alpha, they are relying on me to get them back. My father has children held captive, she asked with a sob. I can't imagine the man I know doing something like that. Sure, he's never been affectionate, but he's not cruel. He's been a good father and has taken excellent care of me. Kat, too. Her parents died some time ago, and he took her in. This is overwhelming. Why would he take them? You said he was a hunter. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You didn't mention kidnapping. Think about it, Petrion said, approaching us. I knew he couldn't stay silent for long, and if he called a pet or love once more, I might not be able to control my actions. I couldn't keep her, but she belonged to me. If I told him she was my mate, he'd back off, but he would also badger me to death about sending her away. Plus, I knew him too well. If I sent her away, I feared he would mark her as his. Regardless, it was clear he fancied her. He's not just holding them captive. Fiona, they're being used for bloody experiments. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was exhausting being harsh with Fiona, and I was trying to be more considerate. So much for that. However, her acting so novy was getting old. No, she yelled. He would never herself own ring in my hand, startling us all. I looked down and smiled at the contact name on the screen, Father. Well. Speaking of the devil, I said and answered the call. Hello, Mr. Quinn. I listened to his confusion for a moment. No, you have the correct number. I'm assuming you want to speak to your daughter. Hold on and I'll put it on speaker. I hit the button and glared at Fiona. Okay, she can hear you now. What? Who is this? Fiona, she said and cried. Which suited me fine. The bastard needed to acknowledge the dire situation he was in. Fiona, what is going on? Where are you? Is Kat with you? And who was that man answering your phone? I turned the speakerphone off. You don't remember me, but I remember you well. Listen up, Quinn. If you want your daughter back unharmed, you must release all the members of my pack you are holding hostage and may best be alive and well. I growled into the phone, awaiting his response. Pat, I questioned. Yes, we have her here. 2, I glanced at Fiona with a frown. I'm sorry, Quinn, but you'll have to speak with Fiona. Kat is indisposed at the moment. The conversation wasn't progressing the way I imagined. The pompous prick seemed more concerned for Katrina than his daughter, so I put him back on the speaker. I will not release your precious pack members until I speak to Kat. Steel-laced his tone. I watched the range of emotions cross Fiona's face and felt pity for her. It was as if someone was squeezing the heart in my chest. She hadn't known about her father. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nolban, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. I felt like a real ass. She came at me with long, angry strides and snatched the phone from my hand. Kat will be fine. I can't believe you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nolban, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. You really are the monster they said you were. I've spent hours proclaiming your innocence. How could you? She seethed and began sobbing. Kat will be fine. What do you mean, Fiona? And stop all that blubbering. You know how I hate when you carry on with such dramatics. My inner wolf was bursting at the seams, hearing the vitriol in her father's voice. I would relish the day when I could wrap my human hand around the bastard's neck. How dare he speak to my mate in such a way? It didn't matter that I would never mark Fiona as mine. Hearing him belittle her caused my blood to boil. I calmed myself by making a vow to kill him. You're a monster. Fiona screamed at her father, bringing me back to reality. Fiona, he barked, his nasal voice filling the room. I've no time for this. What happened, Kat? Tell your new friends that there's no deal unless I get Katrina back unharmed. Katrina, she ventured, her face scrunched in pain. What about me? Kat is fine. They can keep you for all I care, he told her, sounding bored. And if Kat is fine, I will speak to her first before we agree on anything. You can stay there with those maned white beasts, but I will get my Katrina back. I watched as she stood, her cell phone clutched in her shaking hand, her mouth open, eyes wide, and wet. She looked to be in shock. I could tell how her father's disregard was hurting her, and I grabbed the phone back. Listen here, you arrogant, disgusting bastard. Your precious Katrina could speak to you if she was as responsible and smart as your daughter, and they are both alive thanks to me and my brother. Katrina thought it would be a lark to take known drugs from a bloody stranger last night, but Fiona knew better. That stranger gave her Sexflex and lured her to the back of the magenta club. Sexflex. He yelled into the phone. How many did she? She only took one. But that's not the point. Old man. She took it from a vampire. I told him and had his audible intake of breath. And before you ask, yes, he bit her and would have killed Fiona and Katrina had I not shown up when I did. I suppose you think I owe you something for this act of gallantry. He snarled. I want nothing from you except what belongs to me. I used a special serum to pull out any impurities or poison from the wound in Katrina's neck, so the foolish girl will be fine. But you know what you must do to get the girls back. I only care about getting Kat back. You can have Fiona. You will take both of them or none, I said through gritted teeth. My heart wanted to take him up on the offer and keep my mate, but I couldn't get past it. How could I live knowing my fated Luna's father hunted down my kind? I couldn't. Fine. I will gather your property and we can meet it there. The narcissistic prick wasn't calling the shots. I call you back with instructions, I said and ended the call. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.